Hey guys, my name is Jim Partridge. I'm a modder and mapper, and I am going to talk through a series of levels that I made for a game called the Anacrusis, which is a four-player co-op shooter. Very similar to other four-player co-op shooters that people might be familiar with, such as Back for Blood, Left for Dead, etc. And there's a lot of these more coming out now. These are computer generated kind of enemies and pickups, and it's all handled via a computer system, which basically looks at the team, sees how you're doing, dials things up and down, gets ups the difficulty or lowers it, etc. It's very complicated. Now, don't know anything about that. What I do know is kind of, having worked on Left 4 Dead for a while and created quite a few projects for that. I got the knack of building layouts and maps, which kind of get the best out of that type of AI that's going on. And so what happened was I knew that this game was being made by the team at Stray Bombay. They were encouraging everyone to join their Discord, which I did, and I met a whole group of really lovely people at Stray Bombay and also from the community who were all really super passionate about these types of games. And everybody wanted to play them. And so the Stray Bombay team were playing these types of games with the community. And I think this was during lockdown. I had really sort of started getting into doing some Left 4 Dead mapping, and so here was like a ready-made community who just wanted to play co-op games and were desperate for any content because the game had the Anacrusis hadn't come out yet. So I was very happy to have this community available to play my stuff and to sort of play test it and give feedback and give me the kudos that my ego desires, as people may know. And so I was very happy to. So I really went into hyperdrive, building a lot of Left 4 Dead content and sharing it on there, and as a result, Chet, who's the sort of the main guy at Stray Bombay, is asked me whether I would be interested in building out a a community, the first of a sort of community maps, because they were planning to have the community mapping to give the game some longevity. That is a tough thing to do these days because engines like Unreal and Unity don't really lend themselves to that type of experience anymore. You actually have to build additional tools to enable the community to do that. So, as part of that work, essentially, I would be given access to their sort of dev environment, read only, so that I could build some levels and essentially make all of the mistakes and ask all of the annoying questions and all the things that need to happen, so that they could learn from me and my fumblings on what was a good idea, what needed to be done within the tool set that they were looking to create. Now I'm coming from source engine mapping, and this is my first time using Unreal, and I think that there's quite a big history of a lot of those types of mappers, especially, you're probably looking at quite a lot of mappers coming in from the Left 4 Dead community or other spaces, where, they are going to need to make that transition. They are going to have these queries and questions and problems, which hopefully I'm sure I very uselessly embodied all of them. That was, it was an interesting challenge to do. So also, the team were busy. They were busy building out the game. They only had a limited amount of time, and they were very helpful. But at the same time, you had to kind of, figure it out or put stuff on hold for a while because you can't continue with it in its current state. Either they need to fix something, or they need to help me to understand how something works before I can move forwards with developing something. So, um, so um, one of the challenges here was really to figure out how to build levels using the asset set that they had put together. Give me a second. A lot of coughing. Sorry, I'll trim that out. One of the one of the major challenges was trying to use the asset set they created. Now, in professional game design, at least I think how it works is basically, you design a grey box level, and then you go to your art team and you say, hey, look, we've got this great level. Please, we know what the concept is roughly for the design for the artwork. Please go ahead and build all of the assets. And those assets are designed and built not with a sort of modular ethos in mind. Those assets are built specifically for a specific level, and as a result, I'm sure that there is maybe there's some thought put towards that, but as a result, what you end up with is a whole bunch of assets which, unless you know how they, well, unless you're recreating exactly the same level, you're going to have to be a bit creative as to how you can use those assets to create something new. And a lot of those assets, the first level of the main campaign, the first campaign is set in kind of like an airport. It's a spaceport essentially, but it's all very 1970s. You can tell by the design of these crates and these robots and the costumes that characters wear. It's designed very much in that sort of Star Trek 1970s sci-fi TV show kind of ilk, which is great, except everything's rounded. You can see that all the edges are rounded on all of that, and as a result, it is really quite a problem because they're designed to be put together in a specific way, and trying to smoosh them in different ways. Those curves don't always line up. For example, the angles of the circles, the angles of the curves are perhaps sometimes in a different on a different angle. And on a different sort of radius, if you like. And so I tried to rebuild or tried to emulate what they had done, and I just couldn't. I just found it very, very hard. So I kind of gave up, because my natural tendency is to try and create more content, which feels like it's more content from the main game, because people want more of what they've already had. Essentially, if you think about Half-Life 2 or Left 4 Dead or Dead Defeat or whatever it may be, really you want something which feels like it's an official shipped map. Is really what we're trying to go for. Now, I normally fail miserably because I don't have the patience for doing the level of detailing that is required, but it's still kind of my goal to a certain extent. Now, with this game, because that was tricky to do, I kind of gave up on that and walked away from that a little. And I found a different asset set in in amongst all these assets, because I had access to this developed environment. And I found these kind of silvery chrome covered assets with a pillar and a wall and these floor assets and stuff, and I really like them. And then I started combining them and playing around with some strong lighting, as you can see here. It's a little less obvious in this area, but you'll see it later on, and obviously in the areas that I've shown already, to create quite a sort of a unique look, or just something that's, I'm thinking kind of 70s disco, bright lights, shiny, that kind of thing. And that's one thing I really love about this game, is just how bright and clean and fresh everything looks, instead of lots of blood and gore and stuff like that. Instead, it's bright and clean and fresh, which I really like. So that was kind of the design piece around the use of these assets, and it take it into a sort of a slightly more darker feel than perhaps the main game. As you can see, it's quite gloomy in here, but I quite like the overall effect in the end. And in terms of layout, what you've seen in several places so far is these bridges, which it's supposed to be a cargo area, but let's face it, it's completely impractical. You'd never get stuff in and out of here, even if you wanted to. It's convenient, and it's quite abstract really when you look at it. But basically these bridges posing a risk to breaking up the team. You need to get yourself up on the bridge to get out of the area, and there is a potential for you to fall off, and as a result, then that would be bad, right? And so you have to go back around and start again. Now, you're not being damaged, you're not being punished, although I do it in the next level, but in this map I didn't. Your punishment is simply that you have to run around and try and catch up again, and try and get back together with the team again. But it's a way of sort of challenging the team to separate themselves out. So that was kind of the thinking behind the last few areas, and really I was just trying to get Some longevity out of this. I think when I first started that, these bridges were sort of down on the floor, and you would move along. There were sort of side areas that you could run along. I think I showed that earlier, and then get back onto the main path again. But then when we were doing the first testing of it, there was suggested, it would be great. Well, I saw people playing it and thought it would be really good if you could get, this kind of over and above concept where people are running above and below each other, which worked quite well, I think, and seems to be, going down reasonably well so far. Um, and then obviously we had the strong colours in each of the different areas we've been through, and then I wanted to bring them together in a final area where it would sort of become obvious that the colours defined the elevation you were at. Now that whole concept didn't really follow through with it, but it did create some nice sort of some nice visuals, as I say, with this kind of nice shiny chrome and colours. Although I think Jules at Stray Bombay is a little exasperated by my lack of knowledge around how Unreal Lighting works, and I think I've created probably the most horrendous problems. Um, so, in terms of what you shouldn't do with Unreal Lighting, but what do I know? And that's kind of an interesting point, is that I really had three different areas to learn about when I was doing this. I had to first of all learn how to use Unreal. Never used it before. I'd used Unity to do some VR prototyping projects, but I hadn't used Unreal. I don't like it. I much prefer Source, I have to say, or Hammer as a level design tool. I'm sure the engine, if you know what you're doing, I'm sure. Obviously, I've played many lovely games in Unreal, and they look beautiful, but the tool set itself is not fun in terms of as a level design tool. I guess I'd say Hammer is a much better level design tool than Unreal. But Unreal's trying to do like a million other things as well as being a level design tool. So it sort of fails at the level design area. So first of all, I had to learn how to use Unreal, and that's been really, really challenging. That's probably been the hardest part of all of it. And then I had to learn the game, how the game works, what doesn't, what's good, what's bad. Somewhat learnt that, somewhat didn't. I think for the most part, these levels, they work, they're fine. They could be better, but maybe a future project would be better. And then finally, I had to learn Perforce, which was the sort of tool that the team at Stray Bombay used to track all of their asset management and code management, basically. Which once again I never read access to, but I still had to navigate it and figure out how to get the latest version of the code and the latest build and all this kind of stuff, which was rather silly, but necessary nonetheless. Um, and so bringing all those two things together whilst also trying to design and build a map whilst also having a day job and sort of the other thing was as well was that the Perforce area, the sort of development environment that you had to work in was so huge it just ate my hard drive completely. It was like 500, 600 gigs worth of content, which I only have one computer worth doing, and it's not situated in a great place for doing level design work. So I had to kind of sit on the sofa with my VR tower rig, trying to build these levels out. Apologising to my girlfriend why we couldn't watch TV that night because I was trying to build these levels. So yeah, certainly some challenges along the way, but yeah, got a huge amount of help from the Stray Bombay team, and really enjoyed working with them. It was a really interesting insight as well, just to see how some games get made, and what goes on behind the scenes. So in this final area, so you kind of got this tiered area here. I really like this tiered concept. Originally this wasn't tiered, it was just kind of these walkways were on top of each other. And I really enjoyed this tiering concept because then it was like a waterfall after a while. If you got a big spawn at the top, they would all come pouring off the top. And also you got these big wide areas, so you can see, as you see the spitter here, or the slimer or whatever it is, chucking these goo all the way across the thing, so that you see it coming arcing in when you've got much bigger spaces like this. So, but yeah, just that. And once again, if you screw up, then you get knocked down. You have to sort of climb your way back up again. So I quite like that, and the strong colours really differentiated each area within this map. And then finally, I really fell in love with these running lights on the ceilings and the floors here, which were in a lift shaft in the original game, which I then flipped them on their sides. And really, I wanted a nice long corridor here. And what's fun, I think, with this area is if at some points the director decides to really throw a lot of hell at you, and you have to really battle your way down here to get to the finale safe room here to finish up the map. Yeah, so, and sometimes you'll see like tons of stuff coming down here when this door closes, but it's different every time. I'm going to wrap up this video and I'll start the next video in a minute and talk about the second map. Thanks.